What's something dumb you thought as a kid? I was just thinking about this today actually. I don't know what reminded me, but I'm even a little embarrassed today at how dumb I was. When I was like 7 or 8, I was on a competitive swim team. I was pretty bad at it. I got a lot of participation ribbons, I'll put it that way. One day I dove in the water and thought, I should try swimming fast today. So I did, and when I poked my head out of the water, my coach was standing there looking at me like wide-eyed. She yelled, "That's a first. You got first place. I won the race." Or whatever you call winning at swimming. Anywho, I randomly remembered that years later and it hit me. Like, WTF was I doing before that? Did it just never occur to me to try to win? What did I think swim meets were for? Just for fun. And why did I never try this new trick of swimming fast again? God, I was so dumb. Same thing happened to me in middle school football. We were at practice and some guys were holding up tackle dummies as we practiced hitting them from a 3-point stance. I told myself that I should just hit the dummy really hard this time. So I did, and I ended up knocking over the dummy and the guy holding it. My coach got all happy and praised me. I never thought to play like that again, and don't know why I never thought to play like that before. Maybe you weren't naturally competitive. That isn't an entirely bad trait to have. It makes you more compassionate and better at working well with others. No, it doesn't. You can be non-competitive and still just not care about people, or anything. Apathy is also a trait that exists. Speaking of swimming, I used to think freestyle meant choose any type of swimming you want. Turns out freestyle is just a terribly misleading name for front stroke. I stand corrected. I think during swim lessons a long time ago my teacher would say freestyle when he wanted front stroke. It's kind of both. My understanding is that front crawl is fastest and thus is commonly chosen when you're allowed to choose, so the two terms have gotten conflated. That drinking and driving meant any kind of drinking. I would get so nervous when my dad and I would get fast food that a cop would see him drinking his soda and arrest him. In the 80s my dad almost got arrested for Dewey. The cop didn't believe him when he said it was orange juice. Sister had a root beer in a bottle. Dad chose the wrong time to take a sip. Lol. Late at night, 3 kids in the car, and a single dad taking a sip didn't really look good to the cop we passed. We got pulled over, cop and dad had a laugh. Edit. Since a lot of people love adding race to this, I'm pretty sure my dad was given a pretty rough time from the cop. I only said they had a laugh to give it a happy ending. It was like 15 years ago, so I only reliably remember my dad asking for a sip of my sister's root beer and getting pulled over. These comments of, "That's so white," are annoying AF. It's such a high school thing to do. You don't see people commenting, "That's so black," or Asian or Latino, or whatever minority you choose, because they'd be called racist. I could go on, but I already see someone saying some dumb BS to this. I hate racism and call it out when I see it. I was pulled over going to a party when I was 19. I've always kept a bit of a messy car, and the officer asked me, "What's in the bottles?" I stuttered a bit and asked her what she was talking about. She meant the Doritos that I had in my cup holder. I showed her it was non-alcoholic. She gave me a warning about my brake light and sent me on my way. I got to my buddy's house and retrieved the covered box in my back seat that had the remnants of my liquor cabinet. And that's how I almost went to jail. Me too. I told the police officer who visited my first grade class to talk to us about drinking and driving that my mom drinks and drives all the time. She used to get big 32-ounce drinks every day at a drive-thru. Officer, here we go again. Haha, my mom drinks a ton of water, like constantly downing cups of water, so as a little kid I used to tell people, my mom drinks a lot. Someone ended up telling me, "That doesn't quite mean what you think it means." I thought this too. I couldn't understand why my mom drinking iced tea while driving could be a bad thing. I thought that tipping your head back to drink would have been a distraction and you wouldn't be able to see the road properly. It made perfect sense to me. An island was a giant piece of land floating in the ocean. Edit. Thank you for the awards. I used to want to see under islands. Edit. I mean I still do, but I used to too. Now you got me thinking. Girl, my GF worked with thought sea levels were rising because of immigrants moving to the country and causing it to sink lower into the sea. Lol. I'm legitimately curious as to how people are actually this dumb. Like, you read about it, but seriously. I just don't understand. My wife thought that until a few years ago. She's 39 now, so probably 35 when she figured it out. I told her mom that story, and her mom looked at me and said, "Wait, they don't float." So I know where she got it from. I thought my TV was too small to see adults in shows like Tom and Jerry and the Powerpuff Girls. Edit. Wow, thanks for the awards. And Charlie Brown. I don't know what is worse, the fact that I thought the TV was too small or that I really tried to resize the screen to see if I could see the faces. I had a friend tell me about her sister's birth. She said, her butt was shaved, and for the longest time I thought babies were born with very hairy butts. I didn't realize her mom probably had to be shaved until I was older. I also thought parents had to have regularly during a pregnancy to keep the baby fertilized or it would die. I grew up Catholic. We did not speak of the what WDYM about her butt was shaved. I'm confused. OMG, so much confusion. In the old days, when birth became hospitalized and doctors took over the birthing process from mothers, they instituted some very uncomfortable procedures, like putting women on their backs with their legs in stirrups, shaving their pubic hair and giving them enemas routinely during labor. The friend probably said, butt, because she was taught that vagina was too shameful to speak of. You know, because shitting out a baby is preferable to admitting that women have vaginas. I thought Barbara Bush was Eve from the Bible. The news said she was the first lady, and I didn't know what else that could mean. And she did look pretty old from my perspective. This triggered a memory for me. I thought my mom was the secretary to President George Bush. I remember hearing she was promoted to be a personal secretary to the head of her company whose name was George. My 5-year-old brain didn't really have a point of reference for the amount of people named George. There are literally dozens of them. When I was a little kid and my parents were driving, I would see the car in front of us have these rear blinking lights, and generally speaking, they always lit up pointing in the direction our car would be turning. How did it always know? I didn't understand what they were for, so I thought they were there to give instructions on where to go to the car behind it, us. After all, how did my dad always know which road to take, get to McDonald's, Toys R Us, etc.? Obviously he was following the instructions provided by the car in front of us. Hence, I'd always get concerned whenever my dad ignored the instructions the car in front of us was giving with its little blinking rear light. But I figured my dad was just taking a shortcut because he was my dad and dads know everything. Edit. For people asking, mentioning our car's dashboard blinkers, I had a simple explanation for that. I thought the car in front of us was also transmitting a signal to also show the arrows in case it was raining or snowing and it was difficult to see the car in front of us. That's a nice one. I wonder though what happens when you are the first car in the row. How does the driver know where to go? I personally thought that when you stop the car you also must perform some extra actions to manually turn on, off the stop signals and warn the drivers behind you. I never thought the braking process itself and these lights were connected. When I was probably 5, I used to think the highway was full of cars who were racing each other. I would get so excited when my dad would pass someone. I remember telling him good job once after he passed like 5 cars at once, but then I was like, but dad, that gray car is way ahead of you, and he was like, yeah, and I was like, he's winning, don't let him. At that point my dad just had to shatter my illusion by telling me it wasn't a race. Escalators would consume me if I didn't step off fast enough. Holy shit, I saw a video about some girl falling through it and it still scares me. Yeah, that's not nearly as dumb of a belief as we all want it to be. I remember reading about that incident and seeing the video and realizing that childhood fear wasn't as irrational as I had thought. Yeah, I watched a guy get his shoe sucked into the escalator and a bunch of people had to pull him out of the mechanical jaws of death before he was some kind of happy meal for escalators.